guys, my name is Trin and today I'm here to do my January wrap up. I am very excited for February because it's my favorite month of the entire year. My birthday is in February, my siblings' birthdays are in February, and then my friends' birthdays are in February. A lot of things are happening in February and I'm so excited for the month. But before we move on from January, we have to talk about the books or like the shows that I watch in January. So according to my bullet journal, I read 8 books. I watched 1 movie. It's basically like a stand-up comedy special on Netflix. And then for TV shows, I have 2 TV shows that I want to talk about, but really it's one main one. You see when you watch this video, but holy shit, I have so much to say about everything. So let's get started right now. The very first thing that I watched in January is actually Ellen DeGeneres Relatable. So this is a stand-up comedy special on Netflix. I watched this when I was doing my makeup because I always love watching stand-up comedy specials when I'm doing my makeup, and even though it's good, at the same time it's so forgettable because after I finished this, literally the day I finished this, like hours later, I don't really remember what happened when I was watching the stand-up comedy special. So even though it's like enjoyable, it's funny, I think it's just, you know, memorable for like a few hours at most, and then you just tend to forget about it. That's in my case because I have really shitty memories, so after like a few hours I just forget what happened, or I forget what I watched when I was watching this. But I would say that the last 5 minutes was really nice and warming because Ellen talked about being true to yourself and being honest and being a good person, and I really appreciate that. Overall, I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. The first book I read in January is of course The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. At the beginning of each year, I always like to read like an old favorite, so this book was like one of my favorite books of all time. But also I read this in 2018, so I really want to reread it, and I did in January, and it was still so good. This book follows Xiomara Batista, and she lives with her family, of course, in Harlem. She was raised Catholic and her mom is super religious. Like her mom is a devout Catholic, but Xiomara started questioning her faith, starts questioning her church, and basically her mom does not like that whatsoever. And this book is really about Xiomara's relationship with her mom and how they clash, because her mom wants her daughter to be a good person but also super religious. Meanwhile, Xiomara does not want to be religious anymore. Like she literally left the church in her mind, you know, but she cannot physically do it, like stop going to church and stop going to confirmation classes, just because she is 16 years old. And I feel like if she does do those things, her mom will kick her out of the house. I totally get her struggle, and oh my god, this reread, I really see myself as Xiomara. If you don't know, when I was 8, my mother and I, we converted our religion to Catholicism because she married my stepdad. When I was in high school, I started leaving the church and I stopped going to church. And even though some people don't like that, you know, but it's just my decision, and I have thought so much about this. But yeah, I left the church and my mother did not like that whatsoever. That's why this book really hit home for me, because I saw myself as Xiomara because I wanted to leave the church. Meanwhile, family members really frown upon that because leaving the church is a big deal. One thing that I definitely noticed when I was rereading this book is how her relationship with her mom is not always horrible. She mentioned that when she was young, she looked up to her mom because her mom was her hero. And basically when Xiomara was very young, she and her mom were very close and they got along. But then of course when she became a teenager and when she started questioning the church, that's when their relationship start to fall apart. And I really appreciate that because that's so realistic. The writing is beautiful. I love the characters. Oh my god, I love this book so much, and I'm so glad I reread it in the beginning of, you know, the year or like the month. Of course, I give this book 5 out of 5 stars. I highly recommend this book. And if you don't know, this is a novel with verse, so it's very different from the other novels, but it's such a quick read. Like I finished this book within like a day or 2, I don't remember, but basically like the last half, I finished that in one sitting. So it was like a really quick read, and I highly recommend this book because it's so wonderful. The next 3 books are all graphic novels. So of course this is the Legend of Korra Turf Wars trilogy. So I have part 1, part 2, and part 3. In 2018, I read 5 trilogies from Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I believe there are more comic books or like more graphic novels coming out in 2019. And of course I'm planning to read them, but I do like reading them all together, like 3 books at once, because I don't don't have the patience to wait for each graphic novel to come out. So this is Turf Wars Part 1, and then this is Turf Wars Part 2, and then this is the last one, Part 3. So I think this is my favorite cover. This trilogy takes place right after the ending of the Legend of Korra TV show. So if you watch the TV show, then you know what I'm talking about. But basically, Part 1 takes place literally right after it, and then we have new problems basically, and it deals with like the gangs in the show. But I feel like in the show we know like one gang, but in this comic book or like graphic novels, whatever, in this trilogy there are multiple gangs and there's like a huge problem. I feel like I cannot say much because it might spoil the ending for the 4th season of The Legend of Korra, but holy shit, this was so good. I'm so glad that we have these comic books because we get to see the characters again, but then also we get to know more about the characters. And I love how in Part 1 we talk about LGBTQIAP+ in this world, and how Kokeshi is bi, which is amazing, and how the air nomads are like very accepting and opening, and I love that so much. We learned that, you know, the fucking Sozin has to ruin shit, but you know, Sozin is pretty homophobic, so we found out about that. I had so much fun reading these graphic novels because this is my first time reading these 3 graphic novels, and I'm so glad I did because they're so good and I cannot wait for the next trilogy. So for Part 1 I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. It was so good, and then Part 2 was freaking amazing. Like, I had so much fun reading Part 2, and I finished this within like an hour. Even though this could have taken me like a few minutes to finish, I like to take my time because there were so many things happening in Part 2. And then Part 3 I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars because this is not my favorite out of the trilogy. I feel like this wrapped up so quickly. Like, we had this big problem, but then in Part 3 we solved it pretty quickly, and I feel like the villain got away. So I'm pretty sure we're gonna see the villain later on. I have no idea when or where, but I feel like Part 3 just wrapped it up really quickly, and the ending is cute. So I give this a 4 out of 5 stars. But holy shit, these 3 graphic novels are so good, and I cannot wait to read like the next few graphic novels from this world. The next book that I finished in January is Always and Forever Lara Jean by Jenny Han. If you don't know, this is the last and final book of the To All the Boys I Loved Before trilogy. I finally read this book because I keep putting it off for like a few months, but then in January I was like, let's just read the final book and see if it's good or not. And I read it. I kind of enjoy it, but at the same time I don't think I love this trilogy that much. I have problems with the first book. I have huge problems with the second book, and then with the third book, honestly it's slightly better than the first 2, even though I didn't really love the first 2. But I kind of enjoyed this book, and at the end I was like, okay, this is kind of cute, but it doesn't really have a lasting impression on me. I am planning to upload my book review and discussion. I filmed it like a week ago, but I just need to edit it and then put it up, so I'm pretty sure that video will be up before this video. So I'll link it in the cards and then also in the description box below for you to check it out. I'm not gonna say much just because I did film an entire video for this book, so you can watch that video to know my full thoughts when it comes to this. I believe I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. Like I said, if you want to know my thoughts and opinions, then just watch my book review and discussion for this book. The first TV show that I watched in January is of course Avatar: The Last Airbender. This is like not a huge surprise to anyone because I have made it my tradition, or like a tradition of mine. Okay, that's the same fucking thing. Anyway, I'm planning to watch this show twice a year, and I watched it like in January and then in July. So the last time I watched this show was July of 2018, so of course I had to watch it again in January of 2019. If you don't know what this show is about, bruh, if you don't know, this is my favorite show of all time. I have made it like a thing to watch it twice a year, but when I was rewatching this, I feel like I didn't love it, or like I didn't enjoy it as much just because it's so fresh in my mind. Literally, as I was rewatching this, I could predict what happened next. I didn't love it as much, or like I said, I didn't enjoy it as much when I was rewatching it. So I don't think I'm going to rewatch this in the summer because it's so fresh in my mind. So I'm planning to like not watch this for a really long time, so that when I rewatch it in the future, I can appreciate this show so much more. It's still my favorite, obviously, like it's still #1 on the list, but I'm not gonna rewatch it again for like a long time because, you know, it's so fresh in my mind. But if you have not watched this show, then we have a damn problem because this show is so good. This show is excellent in every way. It's so funny, but it's also pretty dark. I love this show so much. Like, when I say I love this show so much, I kid you not, I have a poster on my dorm, or like on the door in my dorm, and then I also have the DVDs, I have the graphic novels, I have everything when it comes to Avatar: The Last Airbender. Obviously, I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5 stars, even though I did say that I didn't enjoy it as much because it's so fresh in my mind. But this show will always be number 1 on my list of favorite shows of all time because I love the show so much, and yes, it's that good. So watch it if you haven't already, okay? The next TV show that I have to talk about is so freaking good. Oh my god. It is called Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. So this show is on Netflix, so you have no problem binge watching this show because I binge watched this show for like 4 days 2 weeks ago, and holy shit, it was like the best thing that has ever happened to my life. My friend Jonathan was like, you should watch Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. I'm like, I'll do it later, and he keep pressing my button and he was like, watch the show. I'm like, bruh. I finally did, and holy crap, it's so good. In this world, there are people who can do alchemy, so you know, they're called alchemists. Our main characters are Edward and Alphonse. Basically, when you watch the show, you see that Edward is like 15 years old, and then Alphonse is a suit of armor, but then like we get like more backstory on that. But long story short, a couple of years ago, Edward and Alphonse were trying to bring their mother back from the dead. They did the taboo, which is called human transmutation, but it's also like necromancy if you think about it. But yeah, they're trying to bring their mother back from the dead, but they failed completely. So Edward lost his left leg. Alphonse, on the other hand, lost his entire body. So Edward did alchemy to put Alphonse, his younger brother's soul, into a suit of armor in order to save him. In order to do that, Edward lost his right arm. In the beginning of the show, we see that Edward and Alphonse work for the military because they're trying to find ways to get Alphonse's body. So they're trying to find the Philosopher's Stone. It's quite like the first book of Harry Potter, but like it's completely different. But like the whole alchemy and the whole Philosopher's Stone is quite similar, and it makes me giggle. But this show is just something else. Holy shit, there's so much happening in this show, and it's so good. We have so many characters, and when I say so many characters, I really mean a lot. Like a lot of characters, and I love all of the characters. Honestly, like there isn't one that I truly hate. This show, oh my god, it will make you laugh, it will make you cry, it will make you stress. I have felt so many emotions when I was watching this show, and I love this show so much. It's so good. I will say that it's quite dark, so be careful when you watch this show. I didn't realize that there will be a lot of killing and murder in this show. We see people get killed, and then we see the blood. Oh my god, there's so much blood in this show. There's a lot of amputation, which is like my biggest fear. If you don't know, I'm terrified of amputation. Like I am really scared that I might get my arms cut off or my legs cut off or anything like that. So a lot of characters lost their legs and their arms, and the fact that I was able to watch that shit, I think it's because it's anime, but still it's quite realistic. Like it's really scary, so be careful when you watch the show, I guess, because like I said, it's really dark. There's a lot of killing, there's a lot of murders, but it's so good. Like this story is so good. This show is now my second favorite TV show of all time. It has jumped that high on that list. So number 1 is Avatar: The Last Airbender, and number 2 is Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. It has taken Brooklyn Nine-Nine's place because before this show, Brooklyn Nine-Nine was my second favorite TV show of all time. So B99 is now number 3. Number 2 is Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. So this show is so fantastic, and I highly recommend this show. It's on Netflix, so you can binge watch this show. It's so fucking good. So yes, overall I gave this show 5 out of 5 stars because I love this shit so much, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm planning to read the manga because I'm not ready to let this show go. Even though I don't need to read the manga because I watched the anime, I'm still gonna read the manga because I want to. The next book that I read is Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson. So this is the graphic novel version. I read this book because I went to a book signing for Laurie Halse Anderson and Elizabeth Acevedo, so of course I wanted to read the graphic novel because I read the novel, like the actual novel, like years ago, so I don't remember the details. So I think the fastest way to consume the story is to read the graphic novel version. If you don't know what this story is about, it's a very dark story because our main character Melinda was raped when she was almost like a freshman in high school. I'm no longer in high school, so I just forget everything when it comes to high school. A few days before her freshman year of high school, Melinda went to this like end of the year party for like, you know, the end of the summer. The end of the summer, oh my god. I said the end of the year, I'm so dumb. But anyway, she attended this end of the summer party and she was raped and she called the police, but she didn't exactly say anything because after that traumatic event happened, she was just like in a state of shock. But she called the police officers and basically a bunch of police officers came to the party and a lot of people got arrested. In the beginning of the story, when she attended this high school, everyone hated her because she was the one who called the police at the party and a lot of people got in trouble. But also the rapist is still at the school and he is a huge threat to her because throughout this entire book, he keeps making fun of her. Like he keeps appearing out of nowhere and he keeps taunting her and it's really horrible to see. And that's basically the book. And holy shit, I really appreciate the graphic novel so damn much. I think a few years ago I didn't love the novel just because, I don't know, the voice is just off. I mean, that's the whole point because our main character Melinda is so broken in this book because of what happened and how everyone hated her and how everyone turned on her. But in the past I didn't love the novel that much, but then when I read the graphic novel just like a couple of weeks ago, it's completely different because we see what happened. Like we get the visuals and we see how Melinda is broken, we see how the other girls hated her, we see how the rapist is a huge threat to our main character, and there's just so much happening in this book. A huge trigger warning for this book. Rape of course is in this, and there is a scene that happened, basically the rapist raped Melinda like towards the end, so we see it happening, like we see it on the page. And like I said, huge trigger warning for this book. Overall, I give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. So after that very heavy book, I decided to read another heavy book. So the next book that I read is The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith. I'm not gonna lie, I was not planning to read this book in January, but I was watching Emma's favorite books of 2018 video, Emma Books, of course. Basically, I watched her video and she mentioned The Way I Used to Be in that video, and just seeing her excitement and her love for this book makes me want to pick it up. So yes, I read this book and holy shit, I have so much to say. I feel like our main character Eden, she was raped by her brother's best friend in the very beginning of this novel. So the first chapter is that event, that traumatic fucked up event that happened to our main character, and it was just horrible to read. After that, she didn't tell anyone, like no one, not her parents, not her brother, not her friends or anything like that. So she kept her mouth shut for a really long time, and basically this book covers her freshman year, sophomore year, junior year and senior year of high school. So that was a very interesting thing about this book, is that we see Eden grow older and we see how this one event affect her so much for like 3 or 4 years. This was a very heavy read for me. Now for the characters, we really focus on Eden obviously because this book is really about her. It is so sad to see how she progressively got worse throughout this entire book. Like I said, it started with her when she was a freshman and then it ends with her being a senior, and it's so sad. Like it's genuinely so sad to see our main character gets worse throughout this entire book. I really thought that by the end she would get slightly better, but no, like when she was at her senior year, she is at her worst. I have cried so many times when I was reading this book. I read a few reviews on Goodreads and a lot of people did say that this book is very accurate when it comes to the portrayal of a rape victim. Eden is a victim in this book. This book, like I said, is really about her. So we see how this one event affects her tremendously and how she makes a lot of bad decisions. And I will say that throughout this entire book, I have to remind myself that this is someone who has been raped. This is how she copes with this. There are a lot of things that she did that I do not agree because it is not healthy whatsoever. So for example, she lied about her age twice in this book. The first time it bit her in the ass and she did it again, and I was like, girl, learn from the first time. But then I had to remind myself, this is just how she's coping with this event. Yes, I don't agree with how she lied about her age, but I have to remind myself that I should not be angry with her. Honestly, I was never angry with her. I was just sad for her the entire book. I think this book is honest and real and raw and painful to read because, like I said, in the beginning of this chapter, or like beginning of the book, we see how Kevin, who is the rapist, he rape our main character. And then later on in the book, like towards the end, we get a very explicit chapter of that event. And then for the other characters, they're quite important, but at the same time I don't love them. There is one character that I kind of like, and then towards the end he's like a pretty shitty character, so fuck him. But throughout this entire book I really focus on our main character Eden. I will say that I wish there's more at the end of this book, because when I got to the ending, like when I finished this novel, I was like, wait a minute, that's it? Like that's all we're gonna get? I feel like there's so much more. I really do wish we have like a few more chapters at the end. I give this book a 4 out of 5 stars because like I said, I do wish there's more at the end. Like I really just want a few more pages. I do recommend this book if you want to read a book about a victim of rape. Oh yeah, huge trigger warning for this book. Rape is in this. It's a very heavy book and you will cry. I cried so much when I was reading this book, so yes, I give this a 4 out of 5 stars. The last book that I read in January is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. I decided to reread the Harry Potter series, so this is the first book and I'm planning to read each book each month. Hopefully I'll be done with the series by July, but you never know. I am planning to film a book review and discussion like right after this video, so you can check that video out when it's up after this video, I think. If you don't know what this book is about, where have you been for the last like 20 years or so? This book follows Harry Potter and how he goes to Hogwarts for the first time and how he meets new friends and how Voldemort is trying to come back and Harry's like, bitch, that's not gonna happen, I'm gonna defeat you again. Did that happen? Yeah. Whatever. I'm not gonna say much about this book because I will have an entire video later on, but I will say that I didn't love it as much as like the other rereads. So this is like my 4th time reading the first book and I didn't love it as much just because now I'm being very critical and being very hard on the Harry Potter series. So in the past I have given all 7 books 5 out of 5 stars, and this time I'm like, no bitch, like that's not gonna happen. I'm gonna be very hard and being very critical because my goal is not to give every book 5 out of 5 stars because that's so easy, you know, because yes, this book is good, but it's not my favorite out of the entire series. So of course I'm not gonna give it 5 out of 5 stars even though I did enjoy this book. So yeah, I give this book 4 out of 5 stars. If you want to hear my review and discussion, then just watch that video. It will be up after this video, so please be patient. So that is it for my January wrap up, and I'm so glad this video is over because it was such a pain to film, and now I have to film another video after this and it's like 4 o'clock right now, so I'm really scared that it's gonna get dark soon, so I have to, you know, make this really quick. So that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe for more videos and I will see you guys later. Goodbye.